Good afternoon, my little spam fritters. I've seen a few videos recently. I was just watching Paddy's new Twisted Assisted video where they've sent him a lovely looking sway back traditional knife. I think I might be picking one of those up myself. And Paddy, if you've got that poker chip going spare, I'm in need of a poker chip at the moment. But on a few channels recently, I've seen the new version of the Junzi come up, which is their more budget version of this one. So it has G10 with a D2 blade, as opposed to this one with the anodized titanium and the S35 VN. Does it make enough of a difference for most people? Probably not. Is this, well, this is the most expensive UK legal knife that I bought last year. I had to think long and hard before pulling the trigger, but it's about 220, 230 quid for this knife. So it was a lot of money for a small UK legal. That said, it's a very pretty high-end knife. You've got this blue, lovely blue anodizing to the titanium with carbon fiber inlays on both sides, and opposed to the D2 blade, you have S35 VN on this one with that very slicey flat grind. This has all the features that I love in a UK legal knife. It has one hand opening, true one hand opening as standard. So you've got your thumb studs. And it has a nice big finger choil with the edge away from your finger. I have quite wide, fat fingers, so when the edge comes right up to the end of the finger choil, you can end up nicking yourself. I mean, this is a very pretty knife. It's probably the most high-end UK legal knives that I bought so far. Is it worth what they were charging for it? Well, you can get those materials a lot cheaper. But then I always get criticised for saying that companies have overpriced a particular knife. That said, it's probably the most high-end, the fanciest UK legal in my collection. I just thought I'd show it, seeing as the Junzi keeps coming up recently. It has that lovely titanium, those lovely titanium scales, the anodizing. It's not worn through for me anywhere so far, but then it doesn't get hard use. Lovely precision milling. Everything sits very nicely. There's no unfinished edges. On this one, instead of having a folded clip, you have a milled titanium clip. Now I look at it with a bit of fluff stuck underneath there from the last time it was in my pocket. I would say I've had this over 6 months. It's bought kind of middle of last year, I think. But it doesn't get as much pocket time as others, purely because I don't, it's looking fancy. I don't want to scratch up the titanium, but it does get used and it has been carried. I've not sharpened it so far. It could probably do with a sharper now, but that S35 VM blade has lasted very well. It's a very comfortable knife to use, even though it's relatively small. It's a good 4-finger grip. You've got control of that blade. It can't close on your fingers. It's all belly, that blade. It's a great shape. It works naturally with the motion of slicing. It's a very well designed knife. This one just happens to be, good looking as well. But as I say, this was expensive. It kept appearing in the Heine Haynes list that I was looking at, and I kept lusting after it, but thought, well, maybe, there's other knives to buy cheaper before you go spending 220, 230 quid or whatever it was on a knife like this. And that is true. I do think this knife is worth it because it's just a beautiful thing and it will last. And if you're going to invest your money in one single knife that you're going to carry every day, something like that is well worth the difference, isn't it? I would add, there's things like the Heine Haynes Real Steel collaboration, that Barlow that they did with titanium, same as you've got there. And this has was it M390? Might have been M6. N690, I think, rather than M390. But you know, that's 70 quid, £220 plus. There is a large difference in price, and for a lot of people, you know, they're getting similar kind of materials. That's another option. That's another route you can go down. The other thing I wanted to talk about was the new twisted assisted traditional knife that Paddy's just shown on his channel, and he wanted people's opinions on it. I think, you know, that handle is very similar to, I originally thought, the Rough Rider swayback, but that brother knife that I've shown on this channel before, that lovely kind of teardrop shaped handle, it's very similar. What the blade reminded me of, and ignore the awful edge on this, but was the what was this, Fox Libar. If you look at the shape of that blade, it's very similar to that one from Twisted Assisted, but I think my phone is obviously running out of battery. But I will be buying one of those. I think they look well worth the money. The last thing I wanted to say before I sign off is, I think I've shown this before, but I have a traditional knife here. It was my great-grandfather's. It's a Humphreys from Sheffield. It needs a bit of work. You know, on the main blade, there's it's a cam tang, but there's no real snap to it. The others snap shut. You've got a chisel ground blade there. There's all sorts of other things on here. The handles are actually made out of ivory. This dates back to, I think, 1890 to about 1910, so it's well over 100 years old, and I'm not quite sure what to do with it. It just sits in a drawer. I feel like it should go to somebody who can lovingly restore it and appreciate it. And at the moment, although I criticised it a lot at the time, I'm carrying things like this. I've got a new office job. You know, it's not appropriate to be carrying anything kind of larger than this in there, and that can sit in a nice slip. I said at the time I thought this was overpriced, but actually now I want something else like this to rotate while I'm at work. So let me know, what do you think I should do with this? Should I hold on to it, just leave it in a drawer? Or should it go to somebody who can lovingly restore it and bring it back to its former glory? I'm not sure. It's a Humphreys from Sheffield. Obviously, I think he died 1910, so it's somewhere between 100 150 years old, this knife, and it is ivory, so I couldn't sell it, but maybe I could trade it. I don't know. What do you guys reckon? I'll sign off before my battery dies completely, but see you all again soon. Ta-ta.